and welcome to Flashpoint. We're bringing you this show in the height of flu season. Today we're going to be talking about paid sick time. Can all companies afford it? Should it be law? What does it mean to you, to your relatives? That is going to be our discussion here on Flashpoint this morning. But it also leads to larger discussions about text messages and lobbying and how legislation works here on Flashpoint. Let's get started with our panel discussion. Joining us, we have Steve Precourt. The Republican is from Orlando, the majority leader in the Florida House of Representatives. He's a business owner in Orlando. He has served in the House since 2006, and he sits on the Appropriations Committee. Steve, thanks for being here. We have Maria McCluskey. McCluskey, I said that right? Yes. McCluskey, a community organizer for Organize Now and a legislative liaison for the Democratic Women's Club of Florida, the local chapter. Yes. And we have Senator David Simmons, who was elected in 2010 after serving the Florida House of Representatives for 12 years. He sits on many committees, including banking, insurance, and criminal justice. Thanks, Senator, for coming on board again today.
Thank you.
All right, Maria, let's begin with you, because you were part of a group that put out a petition and gathered more than 50,000 signatures to get a sick time measure on the November 6th ballot in Orlando. Before that could happen, the Orange County Commissioners back in September decided to delay that referendum. Where does it stand now, and why is it so important, do you believe, that Orange County have paid sick time?
Sure. Well, first, it's important that Orange County has paid sick time because this is a pro-family, pro-middle class policy that helps secure some stability in these unstable economic times for families who are struggling to cover the basics and struggling to make ends meet. They need that assurance that if they get sick or their child gets sick, that they can take care of them without risking their job. And right now we are, there's a bit of a court battle going on with this. We're hoping to get it on the ballot in 2014. The county was actually supposed to put it on the ballot. They had a choice to either vote it down or put it on the ballot. However, they broke their own charter, and in doing so have created a huge mess that, now has dragged on for months and involved lawsuits and text message scandals, and it's just proof that they should have done the right thing in the first place.
How many workers do you estimate actually have no paid sick time in Orange County? Half
of Orange County's private sector workers do not have access to earned sick time, so this would affect hundreds of thousands of workers here in Orange County.
Okay, well, the measure would require businesses, Steve, with 15 or more workers to provide paid sick leave for their workers. What is wrong with forcing employers with 15 or more employees to pay people if they're sick and at home? What's wrong with that?
Well, there isn't anything wrong with the employer providing that benefit. And as we were discussing earlier, one of the things that's common out there is for employers to provide sick leave. Some employers provide vacation time, and some employers provide just general leave time that you can use any way that you want. And I think that kind of freedom to do what's appropriate for your business is the right thing to do. If we get into a point where local governments, say the city of Orlando forces employers to do one thing within the city limits, and Orange County forces employers to do another thing within their city limits, and Maitland a third, that's bad policy, because the consistent and level playing field for our economy won't be there anymore.
But don't larger companies already have to kind of adapt to different county rules and state rules anyway? I mean, the largest employers in our area, like Darden, who lobbied against this, right, they have to adapt to different rules and different laws in different regions, not just in different cities. Are they able to do that?
And I'm not worried about Darden themselves so much as I'm worried about the city of Maitland being able to compete with the city of Altamont Springs. Crossing county lines are very adjacent to one another. So someone's going to, you might get into a battle between the two of them on lowering the standards just as an example of what's required within their communities. You see that right now with all the communities around the Central Florida and the state, for that matter, lowering their impact fees in this economy because they're trying to compete with each other as opposed to responsibly funding the infrastructure that they need.
And Senator Simmons, you're also drafting legislation that would make it, well, explain what your legislation would do. You're trying to make it so you can't have referendums like this in local governments. It would be a statewide standard for paid sick time?
No, Lauren, what I'm looking at is, of course, as Representative Precourt has said, there is a real concern about the inequity that is created with respect to a company that might have one paid sick leave policy imposed upon it by Orange County and then a different one in another county, or maybe none in another county, so that the businesses that would be in Orange County are at a competitive disadvantage to businesses in another county, right across a county line. And that is really problematic. So the idea is to have a uniform policy throughout the state. I'm a firm believer that, for example, we have minimum wage laws, and so long as we're not requiring that employers give all employees $50 an hour as an example, we're talking about reasonableness. So if in fact government imposes reasonable restrictions upon businesses, then that's okay.
And what do you think should be the reasonable restrictions? What details have you put in your legislation as far as what kind of sick time people should have?
Well, to finish, is that we want to make sure that it's uniform and that it's fair. So right now, my thought process is that we would preempt this to the state, and maybe the state would impose a certain number of days as paid sick time, or rather than do that, it would be better that each one of the local governments would have the ability to opt out. And so these are the things that we're looking at. We're looking at doing something that is fair, but in fact something that assures that we don't impose upon businesses regulations that are unfair.
Maria, what's your response to that?
Well, I think the true imposition is families having to decide between going into work sick, infecting customers, spreading illness, or, being able to stay, whether they can go to work or stay home and take care of their sick child or take care of themselves. That is a huge imposition on families. And, it's fine to talk about the businesses, and job creation is important, but we also need to protect jobs and protect families and keep them working. And the way to do that is to give them the assurance that if they're sick, they're able to take care of themselves, to take care of a child and take them to the doctor without worrying about extra financial burden or losing their job altogether.
I'm curious about the whole idea of the fact that I'm curious about the local government versus state government, because we do seem to get into that argument quite a bit. So let's talk about that for a minute. Sure. Senator, you were just talking about allowing local governments to opt out of a possible state law that would have requirements for sick time, what you call fair and reasonable. So you're already saying that there is a bit of a separation between what local governments want to do and what the state government wants to do. What is wrong with a local government, a large county the size of Orange County, making that decision for its residents, that they want their residents to be protected by employers who might abuse those employees who do have medical conditions? I mean, what is wrong with a local county wanting to do that?
Well, as the senator said, I think it's a great idea to give them the opportunity to opt out of this. And if Orange County, for instance, doesn't want the state to preempt them from passing laws like this, then we could carve them out from the very beginning, for that matter. Mm-hmm. I haven't heard yet from Mayor Jacobs yet on her opinion on whether Orange County should be in or should be out of the preemption, but I'd love to hear that from her and the other board members as well. You're right, Maria, they have kind of made a mess of this in the process of getting from where they were to where we are now. But right now, the calls that I'm getting from local governments are for the state to provide a preemption of some sort. They don't want to fight this battle locally. They want a level playing field so that they don't have to get into that bidding war, as I mentioned earlier, from one municipality and county to the next, where you might have Burger King on one side of the road in Seminole County having to pay this sick leave and any other number of other benefits that might get voted in, and McDonald's on the other side of the street in Orange County where they may not be doing any of it. And you'd create a competitive disadvantage to locating just across the street.
You are a resident of Orange County. How do you feel that? Yes. How do you feel about the fact that Orange County residents actually came up with the signatures to put it on a ballot, and Orange County government decided just to ignore their charter?
Well, I think that Orange County, the board did what they thought was the right thing, maybe in the wrong way at the time. The information that we were talking about with the texting and the like was the wrong way to go about developing their plan and coming to a conclusion on how to vote about at the time. However, if the county commission has decided that the language is bad policy and that it's a bad process that led to it, which I believe what they decided at the end, that the language was misleading and therefore they weren't going to put it on the ballot. If they had just done that in the first place, I think everything would have turned out fine.
Maria?
Sure. Well, the language had been reviewed several times by not just our legal staff, but by also the supervisor of elections. It had been reviewed at least 3 times. So when it got to the public hearing on September 11th, the county had 2 choices and 2 choices only, according to the charter. They could either vote no for earned sick time and it goes on the ballot, or vote yes and it passes. They created an option C out of thin air. So, you know, the fact of the matter is this should have been on the November ballot and it wasn't. And 50,000 people signed this petition, 50,000 voters. That's double the amount of voters that Senator Simmons won his election by. That is a lot of people whose voice was suppressed.
All right, let's talk about the voices that were heard, some by text message, during the county commission meeting where this decision was made, including a text message from Representative Precourt. We'll talk about that here on Flashpoint. Stay with us.